Good afternoon, everyone. It's David Schlotthauer here, back in the home weather office with another detailed winter 2023-2024 forecast. This is my third one. I made one back in August, September, now it's October, and I'm so excited to share with you all what changes did I make, including a snowfall forecast in today's winter forecast. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So the first slide that I'm showing you all is how strong is El Nino and what does it look like? Well, this is as of October the 19th, courtesy of NOAA Coral Reef Watch, daily 5-kilometer sea surface temperature anomalies. And I have these boxed out because there are different regions of how strong El Nino is and how that's going to influence our winter pattern coming up for December all the way through March and April. So as you all know, the El Nino 3 is the warmest. That's at 3.1 degrees Celsius above average. That's really a big event, but really it's the 3.4, which we'll get here in just a second. The El Nino or Nino 1+2 region is 2.9 Celsius. That has cooled down a little bit, but still up and around 3 Celsius. Now, the most important region that I like looking at is the Nino 3.4 region. That is running at 2.0 Celsius, which is a strong event, or a very strong El Nino event that is currently in progress. And the Nino 4 is at 1.5, also facilitating a strong El Nino event. So overall, this El Nino is coming in pretty darn strong, and it's really going to influence on what our winter is going to look like. So what are the latest climate models indicating for the months of January all the way through March? Two different models that we're looking at here for those 3 months of the winter season at our 500 millibar height forecast. And so the green arrow is our subtropical jet. First of all, that's looking at the climate forecasting system. And then our blue arrow is our polar jet. And so we can see how El Nino really influences the overall subtropical jet, how it gets stronger during El Nino winters, and how that influences our weather. So on the climate forecasting system, we can see our subtropical jet going right into central and southern California. By the way, this is the United States. I know it's really hard to see here on from tropicaltidbits.com. There is United States. Right in there. I did my best at drawing it. I know I'm not the best at artistry here, so bear with me. Here is Hudson Bay over here. Here's Alaska, and you can see where our subtropical jet is going to be. There's a split flow that's going to happen with our polar jet. Your temperatures are going to be a warm one. Depending on which model you look at, the CFSv seems to be a bit more realistic in itself, with a below average temperatures expected for the southeast, including for maybe portions of the desert southwest on that model. But you can see here above average, really painting a picture across much of Canada, across Alaska and the northern U.S. It'll be a very warm winter up here. Not a whole lot of Arctic outbreaks because of our subtropical jet is going to be more dominant, more zonal flow that we're going to see, and that's going to really lead to more of this Mediterranean air that is going to be scouring across much of the U.S. So any Arctic breaks that we're seeing over the next month or so are actually going to be fading away as we go deeper and deeper into winter. The climate forecasting system is pretty similar, only though that it's showing much colder temperatures up here in Alaska and northwestern Canada versus our CFSv model. It's going to be a wet one depending on where in the U.S. you actually live in. So if you are in across, say, California and Nevada, it is likely to be a stormy one this winter. That's my prediction based on the models that we're seeing. It'll be very wet, lots of wind, maybe some flood problems, atmospheric rivers. I live in California, and you bet I am going to be covering a lot on that when these storms do arrive. That goes also for the southeast into the northeast. Going to be a much wetter than normal winter for January, February, and March, with more nor'easters, more big snowstorms that we're going to be contending with, maybe some severe weather for the midsection of the U.S. But look at this. For the Pacific Northwest, it is going to be a dry one, drier than average, including for portions of Alaska, and that also follows suit with our CFSv with below average rainfall chances and amounts for January, February, and March, which is typically the wettest part of the year for the Pacific Northwest, including for Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. Whereas the CANSIPS is also painting above average chances of precipitation and amounts. So we're going to blend the 4 months together with precipitation and temperatures only for the United States and Canada here. This is the favorite part of my video, but wait until we get to the snowfall forecast and what my impacts are going to be and what my thoughts are. This is not my thoughts, this is looking at the models. So definitely above average precipitation over California, the deep south, and the southeast. That's what we mentioned, with above average temperatures likely for the northern plains. That's typically with what we see with El Ninos. Funny enough, it's actually going to be a little warmer this winter than what you might typically see for an El Nino for the southeast. Moving on into January through March, again, definitely El Nino in place. Look at this. I mean, well below average precipitation amounts over the Pacific Northwest. Could be seen one of the driest winters ever on record, potentially. That could be a really big concern. High fire danger, more offshore wind events could really cause a lot of problems. Versus if you are down here across California, Nevada, and the deep south, you are likely to see much wetter than normal conditions. Big storms for California and southern, including for the Four Corners and Florida and the Gulf Coast, could see some big storms, but really jumbo-like storms potentially for the Northeast. As we get these nor'easters that right up the coast, could bring a lot of snowfall for your region. And then look at this, maybe some Arctic outbreaks at times on this model on the CFS control run, but otherwise much of the U.S. is going to remain fairly mild this upcoming winter, exception of the Northeast. I'm taking this a little further, all the way out to April. I know that's far out, but still, El Nino influences are still in full swing here from the West Coast in California into the East Coast of the U.S., such as Maryland and Virginia. Going to see above average precipitation amounts, and then look at up here, well drier than normal, definitely very dry for Indiana. Ethan B, me and him were talking last night, and he was actually telling me how severe the drought already is there. Could be a lot worse, Ethan, this coming winter. As the drought gets worse, you don't get a whole lot of rainfall, and temperatures look to be warmer than average, so a very concerning one for sure. Now it's time for my thoughts on this winter, and this outlook is presented by me. Okay, your host, David Schlotthauer here. This is not from the Weather Prediction Center. This is not from the Climate Prediction Center by any means. This is my own handcrafted map that I drew. Actually, this is outdated, but I'm going to show you the updated, actually. My bad. I'm sorry to confuse you all. We're going to compare with what I had back in September of this year, in mid-September, and we're going to look ahead at what we're going to see this coming with my updated forecast. So, of course, we talked about over a month ago that it's going to be very dry for the Pacific Northwest, for the Great Lakes, well above average for the Deep South. That still holds true of this outlook. Not much changes were made, as you can see here, updated on October the 21st. Above average chances of precipitation do extend. I went ahead and actually extended the higher chances for California here with a 70% chance, or 60 to 70, of likely above average precipitation. Now, this does not mean you're gonna have it. The odds are higher, okay? So there are chances involved here. There's still that slight chance that it could be below average or equal chances, but most likely the odds are tilting favor for a wetter winter for the West. For the Deep South, you're certainly at a 70 to 80% chance for above normal precipitation chances. With the Great Lakes and the Pacific Northwest, I'm still keeping you all there in the dry side of things. Actually, I made it actually even higher chances in this outlook than I did in last month's outlook. So the same thing goes with temperatures. This is as of September the 16th that I made. Remember that outlook? We're going to update you now. So this is what that outlook looked like. And this is what this one. So I have once again increased chances for above average temperatures for Seattle and also for the Great Lakes. I have decreased chances, though, for the Deep South, as you can see here, but still looking at a potential here that we do see below average temperatures through the months of the winter, all the way from mid-December all the way through mid-March. That's the winter season, and that's what I see here, with above average temperatures likely for the Pacific Northwest and also for the Great Lakes. Now, you all are probably extremely excited for this part of the video that you all have been waiting for. I actually spent over a week long at making this snowfall forecast for the upcoming winter, and I really hope you all actually like it a lot. I'm going to basically kind of make a disclaimer here. This is my actual outlook on the snowfall totals. This is not from anyone else, so please seek official info if you want the most accurate snowfall amounts. But I think this is very accurate in itself of what I think might happen. So this is looking at, again, from December all the way through March and even April. And the first layer is showing you which areas could see 1 to 2 inches of snowfall. All right. So if you're in Albuquerque, Salt Lake City, Chicago, I mean, anyone that lives here is going to see at least 2 inches of snowfall, up to 2 inches. Now we're going to move on to the next one. 2 to 4 inches. Who's going to see that? Well, the same areas yet again. Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis, Oklahoma, Albuquerque, Las Vegas might see up to 4 inches of snowfall. Now let's move on to the next slide. 4 to 8 inches. Who might see 4 to 8 inches of snowfall? Well, it looks like most of the U.S. is going to actually see at least more than a half of a foot of snow this coming winter. Then who might see up to a foot of snow? Most areas here, to be quite honest, might see up to a foot of snowfall. Now, this is not with one snowstorm, folks. This is combining everything. The accumulated amount of snowfall from December 1st. Okay, that doesn't include the winter storm that we're going to be seeing next week. This includes through the winter months, from December 1st all the way through April 1st. Technically, because winter does go into mid-March, we're going to actually round it up and say, hey, March is kind of a winter month still. So technically, through the 3 to 4 month period is where these accumulations will likely occur. Up to a foot, though, in much of the U.S. And then when we look at the next slide, 12 to 16 inches, for some areas now, we narrow down. It doesn't look like a whole lot is going to fall in Indiana. So probably as low as 8 inches might fall there in Indianapolis, maybe in portions of St. Louis and Chicago. But whereas if you're in Salt Lake City, Denver, you might see more than 16 inches. And wait until we go forward into this. Who might see up to 2 feet of snowfall? That's 24 inches. And you can see definitely many areas, including the Northeast, are likely to see that much snow. Now we're going to move on to our next slide. Who might see 30 inches of snow? Well, you can see there for Buffalo, for Boston, you might see a lot because, again, our nor'easters, we're going to see a lot of jumbo storms this winter. I bet on it. Denver, we're going to see 30 plus inches of snowfall. And then the red area, who might see up to 36 inches. That is 2.5 feet, actually 3 feet of snow, that is. Who might see up to 3 feet, and that is a lot of snow. For the Northeast, for sure, you're likely to see a lot. If you are in the Intermountain West, including for California, you are likely to see 36 inches. Now, while 36 inches does seem quite a bit for the Cascades of Oregon and Washington, just for reference, you usually average at more than 100 inches or even 200 inches, okay? Because you get more of those atmospheric rivers, because in latitudinally, you're actually further north in California. That is common sense. So you're likely to see more snow than us. So despite that, you're actually not going to see a whole lot this winter. Even so it looks to be a lot, is actually not a good thing. So now, moving forward, who might see up to 42 inches of snowfall? Well, that's the darker red. Definitely the Northeast, maybe even portions here of, say, the Appalachians could see up to 42 inches of snow. The Sierras, boy, you're going to get clobbered this winter with a lot of snowfall, including for the Great Lakes, a lot of lake effect snow, and of course, across the Northern Rockies could see quite a bit this upcoming winter. Now, let's move forward with the next slide. Who might see up to, this is 4 feet, 5 feet, either way you put it, 48 inches of snowfall. That's a lot of snow that's going to be falling. Denver might see up to 48 inches of snowfall. The lake effect areas could see up to 48 inches. The Northeast might see portions there, could see up to 48 inches of snowfall. That is quite a bit, I'm telling you all, including for the Sierras in California, could get some big time snowfall amounts this coming winter because of the atmospheric rivers. Now, who might see up to 60 inches of snowfall? Okay, this is when it really gets concerning, and that's why I kind of highlighted it here on the map. 60 inches of snow is a lot, and that's going to be covering California. That's going to be covering portions of the Great Lakes. I mean, look at that, 60 inches. Might even see more than that over the lake effect areas. Could see 60 plus inches of snowfall up there across northernmost Wisconsin. If you are in Buffalo, might see a lot of snow, but mainly favoring the higher elevations here like Denver. Near Denver could see even 48 to 60 inches. Now, it just goes higher and higher from here. Who might see up to 60 plus inches of snowfall? I mean, 60 plus inches. That could mean 75 inches, or in other words, 60 to 100 inches. Okay, yeah, I mean, that's covering the Northeast here. I'm going to highlight this in yellow. So the Northeast, Watertown, New York, even Buffalo, New York could get up to 60 to 100 inches of snowfall. Look at this. For California, maybe 60 plus inches, and for the higher elevations here of the Rockies, could get quite a bit out of this. Now, going forward with one more slide, and there's only one thing here on the map, 100 plus inches of snow. And I mean, this is probably going to be well attained or broken because of our El Nino that's in place. But 100 plus inches of snow is expected in my own forecast for the Sierras of California. That is a lot of snowfall. And when we kind of look at the overall map, you can see how much snow you might see. And you can see for Indianapolis, you might see only 8 inches of snow this year, which is pretty low. Similar to with what you saw last year. Might even be lower than that. This is probably a little bit on the higher inside because of the drought that's going to be over your area, the snow drought. But the West could get clobbered, especially the mountains there of California. Now I am going to compare my two winter forecast, my overall impact scale of what we might see. This is from September the 16th, 2023. That was last month. And you can see with what the map actually looked like. But we have made some big changes to this forecast. Let's move on to the next slide, Schlot Dog. Here it is. So this is the updated forecast as of October the 21st, 2023, and I have removed the severe weather zone. I think we're not going to see much of that. We might see a couple of episodes, but most likely we're going to have a winter battle zone up across northern Texas into Oklahoma, as well as Arkansas. Cold and very wet conditions are likely for the deep south, but this is where it gets concerning, folks. If you're living in California along the coast, the red area is not severe weather, by the way. We're going to just see some life-threatening impacts potentially with atmospheric river storms. Strong winds, maybe some high surf with these storms, and some intense rainfall that could lead to some mudslides and a lot of problems, okay? But California is going to get clobbered. We're talking about blizzards. We're talking about heavy snowfall for those mountains. Very heavy valley rain for the Central Valley. We need it, though. Every winter, we can rely on that. That's our rainy season. And then Los Angeles could get some big-time wet conditions. Big snows for the Intermountain West of the Rockies, of the Four Corners, stretching across the midsection and then into the Appalachians. You might see some crazy snowstorms. And if you go further east, blizzards and nor'easters are likely. Lake effect snows are anticipated over the eastern shore of the Great Lakes. If you're on Lake Michigan, Lake Ontario, Lake Huron, you're likely to see lake effect snow. And again, this is very localized. You may or may not see it this year. This is just my own opinion, my thoughts and mine alone. Dry conditions are expected for Seattle, for Portland. That's the main impact that I think El Nino is going to have for the Pacific Northwest. Not going to see a whole a lot of storms. You might have seen a lot of rain already, but don't let that fool you. It can be very dry in January, February, and March. We're not in winter yet. You may get a lot more before winter, and winter can be very dry. Arctic blasts are a sure thing this winter, but we're going to see fewer of them. We're not going to see our extreme Arctic shots. We're going to see some cold shots at times over Minneapolis, over Wisconsin, chilly times potentially over Kansas and Denver, but really not going to see a whole lot of outbreaks of cold air. More like what we're seeing now, and then the pattern's going to change, and then it's going to warm up for a while. And then maybe a month from now, you might see a quick Arctic shot, and then it warms up after that. So we're just going to see very few of these going to impact your area. Mild conditions likely for Indiana, for Chicago, and for Detroit, because again, our split flow that we're going to have, really not going to have a whole lot of eventful weather at all for the upper Midwest, from Illinois into Indiana, Ohio, most of Michigan, and also for northern Kentucky. Well, anyways, that's going to wrap it up for today's detailed winter 2023-2024 forecast. I really hope you all enjoyed this, especially that I added a new map, my snowfall forecast. I'm sure you guys are like, whoa, David actually provided that. I really appreciate that. So if you guys did like today's video, I would really appreciate if you guys could share this with your family and your friends, because it did take me a while to make this. This was not easy from Photoshop. This took me over a couple of weeks to make. All right, I spent overnight on this, and I really hope it pays off a lot. So share this, like it, and subscribe for more updates. I might have another winter forecast. It just depends on how this one does. If this one does really good, maybe I'll surprise you guys for mid-November. That would be my last winter forecast for the season. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with you more tomorrow with a U.S. weather forecast.